My parents didn't raise their voices. They didn't debate. They didn't even flinch. They sat across from me at their polished oak table in Portland, Oregon, and calmly announced that, starting next month, they would increase my rent unless I agreed to become my sister's unpaid childcare 5 evenings a week, plus every other Saturday. I'm Riley Davenport, 33 years old, and in that moment something inside me hardened, not in anger but in clarity. They called it family duty. I called it what it was: emotional blackmail dressed up as tradition. They expected me to cave the way I always did. They didn't know I had already started planning my exit, and that the night before, I'd uncovered something that would change everything. When I moved into the basement apartment my parents owned in the Hawthorne district 8 years ago, it had seemed like the smartest choice. Affordable rent, close to my job at the design studio, a space I could slowly shape into something that felt like adulthood. I bought thrift store furniture, a vintage lamp from a Saturday market, a second-hand bookshelf I rebuilt myself. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Or so I believed. Growing up, our family looked picture-perfect: matching flannel pajamas every Christmas, my mom's homemade wreaths, cheerful cards taped along the staircase. But underneath that carefully crafted exterior was a quiet ranking system everyone pretended not to see. Savannah, my older sister by 5 years, was the center of our family solar system. When she married Lucas and had 3 kids, Aiden, Juniper, and little Noah, the entire household rearranged itself around her orbit. I wasn't jealous. I just learned early that I was the capable one, the one expected to bend, adjust, absorb. If Savannah needed help, I showed up. If my parents hinted at a favor, I changed my plans. If a boundary felt uncomfortable, I swallowed it whole. But you can only swallow so much before something refuses to go down. In the weeks leading up to that meeting, I felt the shift, the forced cheer in my mother's messages, the repeated mentions of family responsibility, Savannah's voice cracking with exhaustion. Still, I never imagined they were preparing to pull me back into a life I had quietly stepped away from. My job, ordinary to many, hard-won to me, finally felt steady. And I wasn't about to give that up. I had worked my way up through long nights, impossible deadlines, and more spreadsheets than any human should face to become the financial analyst I am today. I wasn't rich, but I was stable, finally independent, finally building a life that belonged to me. For someone who grew up bending to everyone else's needs, that stability meant everything. So when an email hit my inbox labeled "family meeting mandatory," I assumed it was just another dramatic Davenport gathering, like the time my mother summoned us to debate between 2 nearly identical shades of beige paint. I had no idea that stepping into my parents' craftsman-style home in Portland, Oregon would mean stepping into a trap. The moment I walked into the living room, I felt it, the tension. My father stood near the fireplace, hands locked behind his back in that solemn stance he reserved for layoffs and funerals. My mother perched at the edge of the couch, perfectly rigid, ankles crossed, expression carved from stone. Savannah sat in the armchair twisting her wedding ring, the same nervous habit she'd had since we were kids. "You're late," my mother said sharply the second I entered. "It's 11:58. "The meeting was at noon," I replied. She dismissed my words with a flick of her hand, as if time itself should bend to her schedule. My father pointed to the love seat. "Sit. We need to talk." The silence felt heavy, almost rehearsed. I sat slowly, setting my bag beside me. Savannah wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the first warning. My mother inhaled. "Your sister needs help." Savannah's shoulders tightened. "I'm drowning, Riley. Lucas is gone so much for work. The kids. I can't keep up." I nodded cautiously. "Okay. What kind of help are we talking about?" My father answered before she could. "In this family, we support each other. Your mother and I believe the best solution is for you to take on more responsibility with Aiden, Juniper, and Noah." "Responsibility," I repeated. My mother lifted a neatly folded sheet of paper from the coffee table. "A simple schedule," she said. She unfolded it like a legal document. "Pick up Aiden at 3:10. Pick up Juniper at 3:25. Bring them home. Supervise homework. Prepare dinner. Stay until Lucas returns, usually around 7. And 2 full weekends a month for all-day care." My mouth went dry. "You want me to nanny every day?" My father's voice darkened. "This isn't optional. We prefer the term helping family, my father said. I work until 6 most days, I replied. Sometimes later. You can adjust, he said flatly. Your job shouldn't come before family. There it was. The familiar dismissal. The quiet erasure of everything I'd built on my own. And if I don't adjust? I asked. My parents shared one of their silent, well-rehearsed glances. My mother folded her hands neatly in her lap. Then we'll need to reconsider your rent, she said. $800 is far below market value in Portland. If you refuse to help, we will raise it to a fair price. My stomach dropped. So you're threatening to increase my rent unless I become Savannah's unpaid nanny? My mother didn't even blink. We're asking you to contribute. If you won't, then yes, your rent will reflect market rate. Savannah finally lifted her eyes, glossy with exhaustion. Riley, I really do need you. And something inside me snapped, not dramatically, not loudly. Quietly, like a wire stretched too long. I stood. I need time to think. My father shook his head. We need an answer today. It's ever so's the ties. You'll have it, I said, walking toward the door. But it wouldn't be the answer they expected. Back in my little basement apartment, I closed the door and let silence flood in. Their voices still echoed calm, entitled, certain as if they had every right to reroute my life for their convenience. My gaze drifted across my living room. The soft rug I saved 6 paychecks for. The reading chair where I drank coffee on slow mornings. The vintage mirror catching the late afternoon sunlight. Every piece I chose believing this place was mine. Now I saw it for what it truly was. Not stability. Not support. Leverage. The realization burned through me. I sat at my desk and pulled out my lease, the document I'd signed years ago with naive trust. As I read each line, my heartbeat shifted from fear to something colder, steadier. My parents couldn't raise the rent immediately. They couldn't increase it more than 10% a year. They legally had to give 90 days written notice. Every threat from their living room? A bluff. And the anger that rose wasn't explosive. It was clarifying. Sharp. Precise. The kind that turns confusion into strategy. I opened my laptop and started searching for apartments, really searching, not just browsing out of curiosity the way I had months before. Within hours, a local agent emailed me listings that fit my budget and didn't require me to sacrifice my sanity. By the next morning, I put in a formal request for 3 vacation days and lined up a full day of tours. By Wednesday afternoon, I stepped into a renovated industrial-style loft in southeast Portland, 20 minutes from my parents' house, but a world away. Exposed brick, soaring windows, concrete floors softened by afternoon light. A space untouched by expectation. A space that felt like truth. I submitted my application before I even reached the parking lot. By Thursday morning, the approval email arrived. I didn't tell anyone. Not Savannah. Not my parents. No one. That night, I started packing. I moved slowly, intentionally folding clothes with steady hands, wrapping dishes in paper, labeling boxes with clear, calm handwriting. As the rooms emptied, as my belongings disappeared into cardboard, I felt something uncoil inside me. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding myself. By Friday morning, I drafted my 60-day notice exactly as my lease required. No pleas. No apologies. Just the truth and my signature. I mailed it certified. Documented. Unarguable. Saturday arrived with soft Portland rain tapping at the windows as the movers loaded everything I owned. I walked through the little basement apartment one last time, wiping counters, straightening the blanket, leaving not a single thing out of place. If my parents wanted to use this space as leverage, they could have it pristine. Untouched. Empty. I set the keys on the counter, stepped out, locked the door, and slid them through the mail slot. By the time my parents realized what had happened, I was already unpacking the first box in my new loft. My phone buzzed non-stop, 10 missed calls, then 16, then 23. Voicemails stacked like accusations. I didn't listen. By Sunday afternoon, I blocked their numbers. The silence wasn't peaceful yet, but it was mine. Then, on Tuesday morning, a certified letter arrived at my office. They had tracked me down. My chest tightened as I opened it, half expecting threats, half expecting guilt. It was both. A demand that I return home immediately for a family discussion, followed by vague warnings about necessary legal steps. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight to Richard Cole's office. Subscribe so you don't miss what came next. The moment my quiet escape turned into a storm none of us saw coming. Richard read the letter once, exhaled, then read it again slower, in the way lawyers do when something is both absurd and completely predictable. They don't have a case, he said finally. I figured, I replied. But they're escalating. So, we'll respond. I want to dis CAA. I want to dis CAA. I want to dis CAA. His letter went out 2 days later, a perfectly calibrated warning stating that all communication must go through him, that any attempt to intimidate, retaliate or contact me directly would be documented, and that no legal claim against me had any standing whatsoever. And just like that, the calls evaporated. This silence felt different. Not my silence, theirs. But chaos always leaks through the cracks. A week and a half later, my Aunt Veronica called. I stared at her name on my screen before answering. They're losing it, she said immediately. Your mother is furious. Your father is. I don't know. Embarrassed? Confused? Both. I didn't respond. I didn't owe anyone a defense. They hired a nanny, she added quietly. It's costing them real money. There it was the consequence. The unraveling. Still, I knew my parents well enough to understand the story wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, Richard called me into his office. Your parents have requested a mediation session, he said. They've retained counsel. Of course they had. My parents hated losing more than they valued being right. I could have refused. But a part of me wanted everything documented, recorded, witnessed. I wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside my memory. The mediation was set for a cold November morning at a neutral business center downtown. I arrived early, dressed in a navy suit, hair pulled back, hands steady. Richard walked beside me with quiet, practiced confidence. Inside, my parents sat on one side of a long table, their attorney Patricia Winters beside them. My mother's face looked drained. My father's jaw was locked tight. Neither acknowledged me. The mediator, an older man named Donald Hughes, cleared his throat and reviewed the ground rules: no interruptions, respectful language, equal time. My father spoke first. We're here because our family has been fractured over a misunderstanding. It's will. A laugh almost escaped me, sharp. Humorless, but I held it back. My mother tried a softer tone. We simply asked Riley to support her sister during a difficult time. We didn't expect her to flee. Flee. I repeated evenly. I followed the legal terms of my lease and moved into a new apartment. We offered you affordable housing, my father snapped. And in return, I cut in. You threatened to raise my rent unless I became my sister's unpaid nanny. It's token funds after it. Patricia, their attorney, adjusted her glasses and leaned forward. My clients regret how that conversation may have come across. No, I said firmly. Let's not rewrite anything. They said the exact words, raise your rent unless you help. They said it calmly, proudly, as if it were reasonable. My mother's shoulders tightened. We were trying to help Savannah. And you decided that my life, my time, my career were all negotiable so hers wouldn't be. I replied. You weaponized rent. You used the apartment I paid for and maintained as leverage. You didn't ask me to help. You told me I owed it. Silence thickened across the table. Even Patricia hesitated, unsure how to bridge the truth, sitting there like a stone. Richard leaned forward. My client is willing to maintain a relationship, but only under clear conditions. No financial threats, no childcare expectations, and no interference with her housing or career. Ever again. My father's face flushed. So that's it? You expect us to accept these demands? I held his gaze. I expect you to accept that I am an adult. And that coercion is not family. My mother's eyes filled with a mixture of anger and something resembling hurt. We just wanted you home, she whispered. This wasn't about home, I said softly. It was about control. Donald, the mediator, intervened gently. Let's focus on a resolution. Is no. The next 30 minutes dragged through every stage: defensiveness, justification, grudging acknowledgement. But eventually, the tension cracked. They agreed. They would respect boundaries. They would stop using money as leverage. They would not ask or pressure me to take on childcare. All future matters would require consent, not expectation. Patricia drafted a short memorandum. We each signed it. Not legally binding, but a line drawn in ink. As we gathered our things, my mother finally looked at me. Really looked. I didn't realize you felt trapped. You didn't need to realize, I said. I told you for years. You just never listened. My father cleared his throat. So, what happens now? I took a steady breath. Now you deal with the chaos you created. And I live my life. Richard placed a steady hand on my arm as he guided me toward the door. The hallway outside the mediation room was silent, but with each step, my heartbeat evened out. This wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. For the first time in my life, I felt wholly, undeniably free. The first morning in my new loft felt almost surreal. Soft Oregon sunlight spilled through the tall windows, warming the exposed brick and catching the steam rising from my coffee mug. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders weren't clenched tight. No one was waiting for me to rescue their routine. No one was tracking when I came or went. The quiet didn't press in on me anymore. It felt earned. Work gradually found its rhythm again. Without the constant emotional tug-of-war draining my mental bandwidth, my focus sharpened. My manager even commented that I looked lighter, which made me smile because I finally understood what it meant to stop carrying other people's expectations. Meanwhile, the consequences of my family's ultimatum settled exactly where they belonged. Savannah hired a full-time nanny, someone trained, someone compensated fairly. My parents helped cover the cost, which, according to Aunt Veronica, became a monthly reminder of the moment they pushed too hard. I didn't gloat. Not even internally. But there was a quiet symmetry in watching them shoulder the responsibility they tried to force onto me. When Savannah and I eventually met for coffee, the conversation felt human again. No guilt-tripping. No frantic expectations. Just two sisters trying, gently, to rebuild something real. I didn't offer to babysit. She didn't ask. And that alone showed progress. Weeks later, we met my parents for dinner at a neutral restaurant. The atmosphere was cautious, fragile even, but civil. They asked about my new apartment, my job, my routine. I answered with the calm confidence of a woman who finally understood her own worth. Our relationship wasn't healed. Not entirely. Maybe it never would be. But it was no longer built on obligation, and that was enough. Looking back, leaving wasn't rebellion. It was survival. Setting boundaries didn't break my family. It revealed what was already fractured and what could finally begin to mend. I learned that love without respect isn't love, it's control dressed as tradition. And no one deserves to live under that weight. If you've ever felt cornered by the people meant to protect you, hear me, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. If this resonates with you, drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The next story is coming. And trust me, you don't want to miss it.